news about Trayon Webb. So I wanted to pick your brain on that because you clarified some other tweets earlier today. So if you want to kick it off with that, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that's one of my least favorite type of stories to report. I mean, Trayon's a fantastic person, and his health the last year has been the one thing holding him back, and that's no fault of his own. It's a physical, brutal game, and he should have more opportunities than he's had right now. And it's like I said, just health been keeping him back. Another setback, apparently, to the same leg that he had the fractured tibia in last year. Remember, he played 4 games, ends up redshirting. He entered the year last year as the number 2 back on the roster behind Montrell Johnson and looked really, really promising. And just unfortunately, injuries, tried to overcome it. Obviously, had to be shut down due to surgery, was out for a good bit of spring as well, had a little procedure after spring to finish that cleanup, and then was trending in the right direction. So it's just a unfortunate circumstance for him. The good news is it appears from what I've heard after gathering some more information going about reporting this, that this is not going to be something they're hopeful is going to keep him out for an extended period of time. You hear
Okay.
a procedure on your hamstring, you could think that this could be a 6-month recovery. That's just from what I've heard since it came on my radar late yesterday, that that's not the case. And so that's the good news. Absolutely. A program source said to me that could be back by the LSU game,
Oh,
maybe,
wow.
Miami or even Texas potentially. Um, the procedure was initially described to me as one that was a little bit severe. Sometimes the way that, these, obviously I'm no doctor, I'm pretty far from it. I'm just a guy in front of my computer talking about football, but sometimes you get some good news where you realize that it's not as severe of a procedure that you were initially thinking it would be. And I don't know if that exactly is the case, but it seems that it's not as severe as what it was initially described to me as, which is the great news. And hopefully, like I said, for Trayon, I can't reiterate enough that it's been great seeing people rally around him and support him. I sometimes cringe and wince when people are talking about, well, now it's time for so and so to step up, when they react immediately to a story like this. And, you know, I can't control how anyone reacts. And this is a game where you're looking at the next man up the whole time. But it was, it was great to see a lot of comments supporting Trayon and wishing him, a quick recovery because, he's a Gator, grew up a Gator. Since he committed to the program, has been totally locked in. I know you've met him at the independent media event, not even a week ago, and just a guy who's really, really easy to root for. So that's my main thought. Again, I can't say enough that I hate reporting on injuries. It's not something that, most people in the media like to report on. It's unfortunately part of the game, especially football. I'd much rather write a feature story on, how well guys are doing and someone whose opportunity is coming up next. And fortunately, that's the majority of what we get to write. We have great access at Florida and we get to talk to so many guys and write their stories. And I'm grateful to be able to do that. And I would much rather do solely that
Sure.
if I could, and that everyone had a clean bill of health. So it's an unfortunate story, and just hoping that Trayon gets back
I,
quickly.
it
Absolutely.
does suck. I feel like when I talk with you guys, usually it's we call the hot headlines, right, that grab people's attention, or usually the fun ones not to write about. But that's the one that's we usually are eager to hear about and want to talk about because unfortunately, that's just what drives our ears. But I'm glad that he can be back by Texas. I think that's perfect. I think we can, or even you said by LSU. It sounds like, I mean, again, we're not doctors here, but I always try to compare similar, like a scope of a knee, where like they go in, do a little thing, and then they get out, and it's like it's not severe, but they just got to fix a little minor tweak. So that's good to hear. And you make a good point about where the people were kind of in the comments are like next guy up, and watching the Netflix series and even having conversations and meeting with these people. It's hard for me, and as a fan now, to have that same mindset I had when I was a kid and when I was younger, where it was like, "F this guy, let's move on," like what have you. The relationship's much different. My appreciation for him is much different. And even watching again, I tweeted out like my love for Graham Mertz grew more than I thought it could. Like it's like you're watching that and your heart's breaking, and my wife's sitting there and she's getting like emotional because she sees it like as her son, right? The mom and him and having a moment. It's like, yeah, this is tough, man. These are kids at the end of the day, just trying to have a career. We're just thinking it as it's a next guy up mentality, which it is, right? That's what we've always heard and been told as kids, like next guy up, let's get it, let's go. But there's a human aspect of it, and it sucks. And yeah, Trayon Webb is one of those genuine human beings there is, and such a Gator through and through. So it sucks, but glad that there is some positivity and some optimism on this as well.
Yeah, you have to be objective in this business, but it's human emotion, right? You get around these guys, and especially in the Billy Napier era, uh, you know, people can have their thoughts on Billy Napier as a coach, as a play caller, whatever it is, but you cannot say that he doesn't bring in quality individuals who are just really, really easy to root for, good people. Graham Mertz is one of the best people you could ever meet, and he was excellent. And his impact at Florida continues to pay dividends because, as you saw in that Netflix documentary, I actually got to watch it myself. I haven't seen it yet. Been
They
a
all
little bit of
die
a
at the
busy
end.
day, but I'm planning on it. Oh, come on, spoilers. I'm hoping to watch it here pretty soon. And I just it'll you know confirm what I know, that there's so many quality people inside the building that you do this for so long that it becomes really, really tough not to be invested in them as people, to
Yeah.
root for them as individuals. I'm not out here as someone in the media. I'm not out here screaming "Go Gators," but when you see a guy who's overcome so much, or injuries, or gets their chance and takes advantage of it, or comes to a program and immediately, like Graham Mertz, buys in and is grateful to be here and is an upstanding individual, and you never hear a bad word about him, it becomes really, really easy to root for them. And it's always so funny because you can have preconceived notions, especially about a guy like Graham Mertz, because I remember at the time there were people questioning the take of Graham Mertz. Florida had said that they evaluated more than 20 quarterbacks and thought that he was the best one. And then he gets out there and is on the cusp of a top 10 passing yard season in Florida history before he goes down against Missouri in 2023, comes back in 2024, even with DJ Lagway, and embraces that leadership role. And you end up seeing that there's more to it than just completion percentage and whether they're an explosive, passer, what their future is in the NFL, whatever the conversation topics are. You understand the nuances and you sit here and say, hey, their value extends beyond just the statistics. Maybe it can't even be quantified by the metrics that we use often to establish someone's worth or not. And that is, I think it's great for shows that Netflix, has done right here. And it's great for your show and anyone who brings on athletes, and you get to see someone, underneath the helmet and get a better sense for why someone would want to play for that person, want to bring them into their program. And it is often why, to bring me full circle here, why Billy Napier is always talking about character. And I do agree with his mindset about, good people make good football players, because, that is really, really true. I do sometimes wince, and I think it's funny. Let me say this: when someone gets arrested, arrest stories are up there with injuries when it comes to my least favorite to report. I take no pleasure in those whatsoever. But so many good individuals with good character that, I kind of wince sometimes when people say, "Oh, this is a sign that we are back,"
We're back.
because, in an ideal world, yeah, it's funny. It is funny for sure. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying, when I see it sometimes, like, I think it's kind of funny because it's a nod to, obviously, 2 decades ago, and it's funny
Yeah.
in that regard. But, this program would much rather have good individuals who never run into any troubles with the law, and those people can be, dang good football players as well. And I've seen a lot of them come through Gainesville in the last 3 years, and it's good that a lot of people who haven't got as up close of a view and talked to guys like you have, and Dave, and a lot of other people have talked to, are getting to see just how good of those people are. And I haven't watched it yet, but I have maintained that for the last 3 years, that the Billy Napier you guys see in press conferences is not the same Billy Napier that these guys see in the locker room, on the practice field. You get a little bit of a taste from, I'm sure, watching the Netflix documentary, of who he is, why people want to play for him, how the team stuck together. And it's because he's a guy you want to play for, and he brings in
You
people
know,
that you also want to play for.